Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Finding Freedom here on Lions of Liberty. And before we get into today's show, I want to tell you guys about iTrustCapital. It's the #1 crypto IRA platform in the United States. You can self-trade cryptocurrency, physical gold and silver right in your retirement account. Now, you get the tax advantages of a traditional IRA. You get them while trading crypto and physical gold and silver. As an iTrust client, you're going to be able to log into your account and self-trade 24/7. Transactions are executed in real time and settle in seconds. They offer more than 25 crypto assets, and they're growing. They have transparent pricing. They have the lowest and most transparent costs in the industry by far, and they post the fees right up front so you can see them. iTrust is secure. They use Coinbase custody and Curve to secure your assets. iTrust also has over 1,500 overwhelmingly positive reviews on Trustpilot. Now, here's the kicker, guys. Special offer here. All you got to do is visit itrust.capital/lions and sign up today, open an account, move money from an existing 401k, whatever you got to do, and you're going to get $100 of Bitcoin when you fund your account. Go to itrust.capital/lions to sign up today.
We are born free, and we will die free. The time in between, though, that's complicated. In that time, governments, institutions, and our egos will limit our ability to find true freedom in this life. These are real stories of real people overcoming the odds, persevering in justice, and unlocking their potential. Welcome to Finding Freedom. Here's your host, John Odermatt.
Okay, so welcome back to another episode of Finding Freedom. Today we have a very special guest. If you've noticed, Lions of Liberty over the past weeks and months, and especially, it having to do with my shift from Felony Friday to Finding Freedom, and also you've probably noticed on Mark's show his shift more into talking about entrepreneurship and becoming a digital nomad and controlling the source of your income, things like that. Well, recently had someone reach out to me in that space who has a really exciting business opportunity that can help a lot of people to really along that path. And his name is Dallas. It's an alias. So let's get that up front. I'll be calling him Dallas. And the company is called PrivacyPost.io. It's a virtual mail, no virtual meals, no meals being served here. Virtual mail and business center for location independent entrepreneurs. We'll get into how it works and the highlights to it. But with that being said, a lot of benefits to it. Obviously, more freedom, lower regulation, lower taxes, all that good stuff. So Dallas, welcome to Finding Freedom.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be here. Huge fan of yours. Been listening to you, as I mentioned, for at least 2 years.
Awesome. And thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for what you're doing to as we were talking about in the pre-show chat. Mm-hmm. You're kind of coming into this marketplace with this business idea, PrivacyPost, helping along these entrepreneurs, people who are a lot of libertarians who are now just kind of having their eyes opened to the need for this privacy, the need for the ability to move your income around, to move yourself around if need be, because that could definitely happen very soon. There could be a need to move with your feet to escape tyranny of many different kinds. Yes. So we can get into that stuff, and we'll obviously be talking about PrivacyPost and how it works and how people can find it and use it. Before we do that, let's talk about you a little bit. I know you're going by an alias, but what can you share with the people out there about yourself, about your background, and really what brought you into this space?
Sure. So it's more about me just leading a fairly boring life than a private life. But I grew up in the Midwest, pretty uneventful life. I've been always an entrepreneur since even elementary school and through high school. My first job, my first paycheck was at age 13 because my friends at school, I grew up in a school that had upper middle class mostly, and I was lower middle class living on a farm. And my friends, I was kind of got in with the popular crowd, and they weren't really teasing me, but they were noticing that I dressed different. They noticed I didn't have Nikes or Adidas Rom tennis shoes. I didn't have the Levi cord pants. I just dated myself there. And they would just say, well, why don't you wear, why are you wearing tough skins? Why are you wearing bumpers back when bumpers weren't cool? And so I took it upon myself at age 13 to get a job and go out and buy my own clothes and to succumb to the peer group pressure. And from age 13 on, I had great parents and involved and responsible parents, but I pretty much became financially independent from my daily expenses for school activities and in my clothing and field trips and my car, my insurance, my extra health care that my out of pocket. From then on. And I've always been a serial entrepreneur, even at times in my life when I settled down and had children. When I was working a full-time job for that steady income and more of that consistency, I consider myself an entrepreneur, where I was always thinking. I always had a side hustle. I was always like creating new ideas, doing things on the weekends, learning things, stuff like that. So I've always been an entrepreneur. 7 years ago, back up a little bit. I've always been a traveler. I've always had wanderlust. When I graduated high school, even though I barely graduated high school, not because I was not smart, it's because I was very bored and I worked all the time. I had an opportunity to go and, of all things, ironically, be a conversation teacher in Japan. So I spent 3 years right out of high school in Japan. It was a great, awesome, what a shock in culture and stuff. This was in the 80s when Japan was taking over the world, or we all thought so, But I've continued to travel through my life and settling down for kids for a while and continued to travel. Empty nester, I traveled more. And then about 7 years ago, I really I started leaving the system, leaving the full-time job, becoming what many people are becoming today, and becoming more independent on my source of income. And I was doing more independent contracts. I became more location independent, and I decided I needed a different state that was not taking so many of my taxes, or taking too much of my income in taxes. And I did my research, and I chose South Dakota. And at that time, then I went there. I got my driver's license there. I got my residency there, and that was my state I claimed for income taxes. And I haven't looked back. About 4 years ago, I became location independent and an expat, and I moved to Europe. I moved to Portugal, and I have maintained my domicile. We'll talk about domicile later in South Dakota. And even though as a U.S. citizen, you're taxed on your worldwide income. There's only 2 countries in the entire world where you're taxed on your worldwide income, and we're one of them. And the other one escapes me right now, but it's a very small, insignificant country. So it's very important for me to strategize where I'm paying my state income and where I domicile. So that's kind of led me down this path. And with that, when someone's living location independent, whether it's in the country or out of the country, they still need to choose a state. They need to choose a state that they call home for legal reasons, for health insurance reasons, for tax reasons, many other reasons. You need to choose a state. You can't just say, I don't live in any state. You need to claim one. And therefore, I continue to claim South Dakota. And with that, you have to also have a mailing address. And I was having a hard time finding a mailing address that met my requirements of privacy. And that's one thing I did not emphasize is I am a huge privacy nerd. I am a self-proclaimed privacy practitioner. I'm not an expert. I'm not a professor. There's no degree in privacy that you can possibly get, but especially after 2013 with the Snowden disclosures, I really, really started paying attention to my privacy. And oddly enough, that is about the same time that I started looking at leaving the country. It wasn't because of Snowden. There were other events, but that kind of really made me be aware of my privacy. And
let me ask you a quick question on that, because so when it comes to privacy, my thoughts on privacy, I think, have kind of evolved over time here. I think it's very hard. Number one, in today's world, living in the United States and participating in society, just with normal technology, having a cell phone, I think it's very hard to have any privacy, because even having that cell phone, you've basically given away your privacy, right? So I'm just curious, when I come across people who are very strong, staunch advocates and of maintaining personal privacy. How do you handle things like a cell phone? I mean, do you have a cell phone? Do you?
Right. Boy, do I want to disclose what my strategy is for that?
Yeah, you don't have to. I mean, you can go into as much or as little detail as you're comfortable with.
Here's the deal. You have to communicate. You have to communicate with people. You have to communicate with your circles, with your society, with your family. And having a cell phone would be almost impossible for me to give up. I think it depends on what level of privacy and security you want would determine what kind of cell phone that what kind of and basically Android versus iPhone. One thing I would say about that is running your own business and being an entrepreneur, and especially in the content creation side. Majority of the people, if you had an iPhone, you notice the difference between an Android user on the other end and an iPhone user. Do you know how to tell the difference? Yeah. So blue or green, right?
Yep.
And I have so many blue conversations when I use an iPhone, when I use an Apple device to message back. When I use multiple devices, that's one of them. And for me to say Apple's evil, Apple, I'm not going to use Apple. I don't trust them. I would have to be reverting to just regular SMS texting, because I don't use WhatsApp. I don't use Messenger. I do use Signal. And there's a lot of people in the creative side that do not use Signal, and you have to have that conversation with them and encourage them to use it and so forth. But so before you even have that conversation, yes, they're blue, and I will take blue over green or anything else. Sometimes you just have to pick your poison, right? And I think there is a layer of privacy with an iPhone, and people, that's probably, the privacy, the maximalists will hate that conversation, and they would vehemently disagree with that, but it is better than green. Okay. It's better than just a regular SMS text, plain text going through the phone systems and the carriers and the providers and blah, blah, blah. So you really have to pick your poison, and you have to really choose, do I want to not communicate with anyone? Do I want to live in a hole in the ground or in a cave? And when you're running your own business, you're a content creator, you're a creative person, you've got to communicate with people. And I would much rather communicate with people blue than green, if that makes sense.
No, that does make sense.
Okay.
I think so. I cut you off there. You were talking about getting into privacy, how you became a privacy nerd. And then that's when I took you off course.
No, that's okay. And it's easy for me to go off course and go down the rabbit hole. So I appreciate you bringing me back. Yeah. So with the privacy, moving to another country, there's still a lot of things you have to do in the U.S. You have to do your taxes, you have to do your accounting. If you're really a true entrepreneur and you're building you're attempting to build, you have a goal of building a successful business, you need what's called B2B professional services that you need to communicate back within the U.S. And with that, you need a mailing address. You need a place to get your IRS stuff, your company registration stuff. There's a lot of stuff you can do soft copy, through your banking and stuff. You can choose, don't send me a statement, just let me get it off the online banking and so forth. But there's a lot of things that you need a registered address for, especially if you have an LLC or a corporation that you've created for yourself. You need a physical mailing address for legal notices and stuff like that. And I was really having a hard time finding a service that I felt comfortable with that had my privacy and my security in mind. Most of them, if not all of them, they either use a cloud platform through a third party that Your information is on this big platform. Is it secure? Is it private? That's to be determined. Or they use their own in-house system that's very small, home-baked. Maybe they had some IT guy, build it up for them, or they took components of several different, technologies and made this kind of janky, service that they'd scan all your mail into for you to then, quote unquote, get it anywhere in the world. And I'm looking at these systems. I'm talking to these people. And I'm like, I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel safe. I don't feel secure and private that my information is in these systems. And you think about it through multiple years of all your mail is put into these cloud services that they're provided out there that you can just web search and they'll all come up. The top ones that will come up. If you've got 2, 3, 4 years of all of your mail, your contracts, your lawyer letters, negotiation stuff and whatever in these cloud services, and it's not a matter of if, it's when that is compromised, what information about you will be disclosed to the ether, to the dark web and the regular web, and how could that information be used against you? And how can that affect your what's called OPSEC, your operations security? Do people know where you live? Do they know, personal information about you that will be forever out there on the internet for anyone to, it will be memorialized and it will be used to glean information if you become a target, or that information would maybe be identified that, that would be a good target because now we have all this information. A quick example would be Madonna. A couple years ago, her lawyer in the U.S., Madonna, she lives, ironically, she lives in Portugal as well. We're best friends. No, we're not.
I was going to ask you that about Madonna.
It's a kind of a joke here, but that we're friends. But her lawyer was compromised. He was breached. He or they, the practice. And again, that's a web search. I don't have the details in front of me, but I remember reading, because I'm always looking at these breaches and stuff. All of her information, not all, but what the components of that relationship and her business that he was dealing with, that was all exposed on the internet. And she was not very happy. So that can happen to any one of us. And if we start a business, if we're an entrepreneur and we have lofty goals to be something, it's really important from the beginning that we protect our privacy. And so that's why I came to the conclusion I need to create my own system. I need to create a system that meets my standards of privacy and security that I can have control over. And then also I want to then say, hey, when COVID hit, I'm like, this is a great opportunity for me to build this out, scale it out, and this is going to be my new venture. So that's how that kind of all came to be. It's really, that's like what's the saying, necessity is the mother of all invention. It really was a necessity for me and my privacy peeps to have this service. And so that's how it was born.
Well, that's really interesting. And I mean, that's like how you said that, because one way, to meet a need, to know you're meeting a need, is to fill a need that you have yourself.
Yes.
So you're solving one of your own problems. And if you solve a problem that you have, of course, other people are going to have that same problem.
Right.
So I think a lot of people create businesses and they get into it and they're a year or 2 years down the road and they're solving a problem. Like, does anyone have this problem? Who has this problem that I'm solving?
And I think too, another layer of this whole thing is finding professional services that understand privacy and security. John, I can't tell you how many, lawyers I've talked to and accountants and so forth, where, okay, so if we engage in a relationship and you help me with my taxes or my legal stuff, how do we communicate securely? And they're like, just send me a PDF and password protected. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You think password protecting a PDF is going to secure our conversations and my information? There are so many professional services out there, John, that just they don't get it and they don't understand it. They're using, it's like, oh yes, send me an email and it's, John Smith Law Firm at gmail.com. Mm-hmm. And it's like, are you kidding me? And then you go 2 layers deep of like, how do you protect my information? How do you secure my information? And then they don't want to answer those questions. And it's like, we really don't, we're not interested in your business. And so along with this business, I've been finding professional services that understand and respect and value privacy and security and are patient with that and honor people's requirements for how their data is protected and how their data is private as much as possible these days. But yeah, so there you go.
So that could be another business opportunity of some kind, cataloging these professionals who understand privacy as a sort of network to be a part of.
And that is part of the services that we're building out, is building these relationships. And I'm telling you, John, it has been a journey. Starting a business in South Dakota. South Dakota is a very conservative. I don't want to get in trouble here, but I'm just going to say it. Many professional services in South Dakota, they're kind of esoteric Luddites with technology, and they're big into banking and trust, so they're very conservative there. Mm-hmm. And finding the right professional services that get privacy and get this model. They're like, I was during the height of COVID when I couldn't travel and I'm locked down in Portugal. I'm calling these law firms and these accountants and these business formation people in South Dakota. And I'm, introducing myself and I'm saying, hey, I've been a virtual resident of South Dakota for 5-6 years at that time, blah, blah, blah. And I tell them my business model. I'm like, we're not interested. And they didn't get it. They didn't appreciate it. They didn't get it. They didn't see a need. They didn't. And it's like, you're in Portugal and you're talking to me in South Dakota, seriously. And it really took time to build relationships and to have conversations with the right people that get the model, that are inspired by the model and get that concept. And the biggest, hardest one was getting the right lawyer. And I've got an amazing internet lawyer that is really keyed on data privacy and security. And the other component is to find professionals that are not completely transactional. Of course, they want to get paid. They want to make money, but finding those professionals that are not going to say, oh, okay, well, before I talk to you, I need a $5,000 retainer. And, every time we talk, if we talk for 10 minutes, I'm going to bill you for minimum 30 minutes. And you're beginning you know what I'm saying about transactional. Mm-hmm. And finding those professionals that are more, you have an amazing idea. You have an amazing business model. I want to be part of that. And they aren't so transactional. Of course, they need to get paid. They're not going to, give away their work for free. But you can actually go onto Signal and chit chat with them a little bit, and they reply to you, and you're like, "Wait, what?" I mean, it's awesome.
They're not going to charge you for the time they spend replying to your message.
Exactly. Yeah, and John, honestly, there are a couple of these professionals that I've been building these relationships with that I have to say, can I pay you? I feel like I need to pay you. Can you please send me an invoice? And they're, oh, okay, well, sure. I don't know if I've done much value for you. I'm like, no, you have done a ton of value for me. Please, I want to pay you. I want to retain you. I want to keep you, in my circle of advisors. Mm-hmm. So it's really important to find those people, and that's who we are working with, and that's who we want to continue to build relationships with, and to be able to refer other people to, so that will appreciate and value that. We kind of do some vetting of their privacy model and so forth. We don't do a full audit of it, but what do you use for email? What do you use for messaging? Are you flexible with Signal? Are you flexible with Proton Mail? Blah, blah, blah. How about end-to-end encryption? We can talk about end-to-end encryption if you want to have that explained in simpler terms. And you talk to these lawyers that are like, oh, well, we use Outlook. And I don't know. We'll have to talk to our IT guy, and it's a contractor that comes in once a week to fix computers, but then you get the right ones, and they can answer those questions, and they have the answer for you, and they're very firm on, yes, we know our privacy, we've got this down. This is what we do. This is what we can accommodate. Blah blah blah. So,
So let's talk a little bit about why South Dakota. I mean, because there's a couple other states that you said when you were looking at this, there were a couple states in the running. There's, just coming to top of mind. Texas has no state income tax. Florida, I think, has no state income tax. But
correct.
I have no idea about the other privacy factors that go in with those states. But why does South Dakota come out on top?
Okay, so South Dakota comes out on top for me. every individual, every business model, every entrepreneur, they have to do their own individual analysis. It's not a one size fits all. To say everybody should go to South Dakota or everybody should go to Texas or everybody should go to Florida. But you are right. Those are the three top states for location independent entrepreneurs, is those three states. And you have to look at several factors, and we'll talk about a few of them. And one thing I'd like to say, and I should have said this at the beginning, this is the disclaimer here, is I am not I am an advisor. I've learned through experience. I'm a tactile learner. I learn through doing. I talk to tons of people. I read so much. I read tons of case law. That's why I've been a big fan of your show. And so I can't, people, please, if you're listening to the show and if it got your interest, please talk to the professionals, find the right lawyer, the right accountant, the right bookkeeper, the right business formation people. Everybody's situation is different. My advice may or may not be the best advice for everybody, but South Dakota was for me. Back to give you more details on your question. If you have roots in Florida or Texas, that's part of what you have to do for your analysis. And you have to talk to the professionals and say, here's my situation. You got to put it on a spreadsheet and really do your analysis of all the different variables that you have to look at. Income tax, licensing, if you have a vehicle or if you have property, so forth. You have to take all those in. And there's so many resources online that you can look at to really do an analysis to your personal situation. And also back to the professionals, and you have to be a little careful with the professionals. So there's a saying in the tire business, and this is just because one time I was buying tires, and I don't have any expertise in this, but the saying in the tire business is the best tire for if you go to a tire center, the best tire for your car is the tire that they have in stock. Okay. Because they don't want to have to, schlep anything in or anything. So, the best tire for your car is we have it in stock. So I think when you talk to a professional that's more regionally minded, an accountant or a lawyer that's more rooted in one state, and if you say, what state's best for me, they're probably going to think, our state's best for you because these reasons. And they're thinking maybe they know you're that state the best. And also they're thinking, well, if I tell this person to go to another state, I'm going to lose them as a client. Mm-hmm. So you really have to find the right professionals that have that big picture view of it all. But back to your question, Florida, South Dakota, and Texas are the three primary states for location independent people. I don't have specific statistics on that, but if you talk to people and so forth, that's where they seem to be. Now, what makes Florida and Texas more attractive, of course, is the weather, right? But also what makes it attractive is a lot of people who are location independent with a winter home, they're snowbirds. They're not snowbirding in South Dakota. They're snowbirding in Florida or Texas. So, and Arizona's a close runner-up. So though they're in those states anyways, they've got a physical presence there. So for them, it probably makes more sense that they put their residency in that state or their domicile, or you could call it residency as well. And please remind me to explain a little bit more about domicile versus residency.
We'll come back to domicile.
So it all is really independent on the individual and all the circumstances. Someone, you really need to take a close look and seriously analyze everything. If you do not have a connection to Florida and Texas, if you do not see yourself vacationing there or snowbirding there, if you don't have family there, I'm a strong proponent, yes, of South Dakota for many reasons we can get into. South Dakota especially if you're moving out of the country, if you're becoming an expat, South Dakota is a very serious contender to look at for a multitude of reasons.
Hey, we're going to take a quick break in the show here today. And, we're talking about privacy. We're talking about building mobile income. And you've heard us talk about in the show before the Nomad Network, creator of the Nomad Network and host of Wealth, Power, and Influence, Jason Stapleton, is holding an event that really aligns really well with this message coming up on December 11th. The event is called Discover 2022. And, this is right in the wheelhouse for people who are looking to really unlock their potential, to look for different ways to recession-proof their income. Jason's going to be talking about a bunch of different side hustles that can be started up really quickly. you can discover who needs you most and what they will pay for it. This is a free event. It's going to help you get some clarity and vision around what you need to do really in your life. So Jason is an expert in this field, as you know, and you can attend this event for free. You can do that by going to www.stapletonagency.com/discover-lions. So that link, if you don't have a pen to write that down, you can just go to the show notes page for this show. I'll have it there, and you can click on it, attend the event, and unlock your potential, guys. Let's do it. Yeah, and I mean, just looking at, I don't know if this factors into your decision, but looking at how different states handled the COVID pandemic in response to it, South Dakota remained the most free. And you might think, oh, but if you're somebody who's living outside of the United States, why does that matter? Well, it matters if the businesses you're going to be working with are locked down, or people are going to be available to talk to and work with. And so, I think that's definitely important.
Yeah, and a quick story about that. My last trip back to South Dakota was about a month ago, and I was there for 6 weeks or so. And, masks nowhere practically, very few masks, which is kind of interesting because this PrivacyPost is in Sioux Falls, and there's a lot of healthcare people.
Very nice. I love Sioux Falls.
It is, and we'll talk more about that. And Sioux Falls, there's a lot of medical people there, and there's a lot of private colleges there. So there are some progressive circles within Sioux Falls. It's a fairly eclectic town, but still not a lot of masks. So I was not wearing a mask practically the whole time I was there, and I come back to Portugal. Get in late on a weekend, and the following day I had to rush to the store to get some supplies, and I'm in the grocery store, and I'm way in the back, and I just felt like people were just like glaring at me. I could just feel those laser eyes, and I'm like, what's going on? I'm fairly sensitive to what my surroundings. I try to be have heightened situational awareness as much as possible. And I just felt like people were staring at me. And it's like, I was wearing cowboy boots, and sometimes people look at that and they don't see cowboy boots in Portugal very often. But anyway, so I'm in the back corner of this, mid-sized market, and the person in the deli, she starts not yelling, but she's like, mashkara, mashkara. And she's pointing to my face. I'm like, what? And I'm like, oh my gosh. All of a sudden I instantly felt naked. I didn't even have a mask with me. And so I had to go buy, I'm like, what do I do? And she made me go to the door, and then she went and got a box of masks, a box of 100. And I had to buy the whole box. And I said, I tried to put them in my cart, and I'll buy them when I check out. And she's like, no, you buy them now. She took my money, went in, rung it up, and came back, and I put on my mask. And so there you go. So yes, it's a big adjustment. Being there and things there, they still, during the height of COVID last year, they still had a Sturgis rally. There were talk of it being a super spreader, but I don't think that really culminated to that.
Yeah, I don't think it culminated at all. I mean, I think that basically even the, the most church of woke COVID type people, I think, have come to grips with the fact that outdoor spread is not a real thing. So right, yeah, and so so that was a big adjustment for me. And but yes, to your point, South Dakota is, they're not the typical stand on all of that stuff with the COVID and all the restrictions and stuff. They are open for business. So you've brought up a couple of times domicile and what that means, and how is it different than a residency?
It's a huge difference, John, and people really need to understand this. And that's one of the big things here I want to bring to this show and talk about. Have you heard? And it's funny that not a lot of people have been aware of this phrase called the Great Resignation. Have you heard that term?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and that's also a variation of that is the big quit.
Mm-hmm.
And now a new one, as I was just kind of putting my notes together for here, was a Striketober. I wasn't even aware of that. Apparently, October was a big month that people just kind of said, "I'm done. I'm done with
Really?
this 9 to 5 BS." Yeah. But anyways, with that, a lot of people are they're voting with their feet. They're moving. They're like, okay, I'm done. I'm gonna be my own boss. I'm gonna start my own business. I'm gonna be location independent. I've been stuck in this with this, COVID stuff. Why do I have to be home? Why can't I be on a beach and somewhere else and working remote if I'm working remote? All these things. And so people are then starting to, decide, well, wait a minute. If I'm not in this state, why am I paying this state income tax? And they're looking at the numbers and they're going, this is crazy. So they're changing their state that what most people call their state that they reside in, that they claim. And the true term, there's a difference between residency, or where you reside, and your domicile. They oftentimes are intertwined and people get them confused. But really, residence, or where you reside, is where you physically are. You can be physically in an RV, you can be physically, in a cabin, in an Airbnb, you can be physically anywhere in the world, but where you legally domicile back to that state that you choose as what you call home, that you will someday return to, that you refer to, that when people say, where are you from? Well, I'm from New York City. The place where you go see all your doctors, the state where your taxes are filed, where your will is registered, or where you claim your will and stuff. That is your state of domicile. You can have many residencies. You can be a multimillionaire and have 100 homes around the world, and they can be all residencies of you, but you really have only one state that you domicile, and you need to choose that state. So what many people will do is they'll let's say they have a cabin. No, I'm sorry, they're not a cabin. They've got a winter home in Florida with an RV, and let's say, I'll pick an easy state to kind of geographically locate to South Dakota. Let's say they live in Illinois and they live near Chicago, and they just have god awful, taxes and surcharges and everything else, and they're sick of it, but they go to Florida for 2 months. Well, they're like, okay, well, we're going to Florida this winter. Let's take a detour up to South Dakota. Let's go ahead and stay there one night. That's required to become a resident. And let's go get our South Dakota driver's license. Let's go get our South Dakota plates. You can all do that within, one business day.
So you only need to be there for one day in order to...
One night.
One night.
One night. And let's get our driver's license and our plates for South Dakota. And then let's go head down to Florida. We now reside in South Dakota, but they're claiming everything in South Dakota, but they spend 2 months of the year in Florida, the snowbirding months, but they go back to Illinois. They have family there. They've got their church there. They've got their banking there. They have everything there. And they're like, no, we don't live here anymore. We reside in South Dakota, and we spend our winters in Florida. And I guarantee you, John, a lot of people fly under the radar under that model, and I know many, many people do it, but the tax man's coming. Mm-hmm. The states want their money. And if you are one of those unfortunate people that are running under that, flying under the radar and trying to justify that model, when the tax man comes, when the state tax person comes, it is not you are innocent till proven guilty. You are guilty till proven it. The burden of proof is on you.
Yep. And
they're going to ask about 7 questions to verify, where you reside. What does your Facebook say? What is your doctors, your dentist, your veterinarian, your church, your mailing address, your voting. Where do you vote? Where are you registered to vote? And not only where are you registered to vote, do you vote? That is a really key one. So someone may go and automatically register in South Dakota, but they never vote. Okay. Where do where's your healthcare provider, your healthcare insurance policy say you live, and stuff like that. So they do this shell game, and they just do the bare minimum. And eventually, not eventually, but many of them do get caught. And it's then the burden of proof is on that individual to prove otherwise. And they aren't especially on the coasts, they are not very agreeable in those situations, and it takes a lot of justification, and could take a lot of maybe legal action and so forth, and time to justify where your domicile is. So people get the residency and domicile confused a lot, but really people need to understand, and they need to focus, and they need to meet the minimum requirements for a domicile. So if that time comes, that they can justify where they domicile, what state they've chosen is legally true, that's where they domicile and that's where they call home.
So the minimum requirements for a domicile, essentially, are basically what you were naming. Where you see your doctor, where your church or place of worship would be, where your banking is, things where you vote, where you're registered to vote, and where you do vote.
Yes,
things like that.
Yeah, and so there's things you can do to mitigate that. And again, these things I was listing, they're different for every state and situation. There's some general things that you could look at. It's a big one. If you say, I no longer live in Illinois, but yet all your medical records indicate that you see your doctor when you're home visiting, all your family members, you got Facebook pictures posted all over of going to baseball games and so forth in Chicago, and all of these things point you to Illinois, and you are trying to see. And that's the other thing too, is you may be saving $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year in taxes by being someplace else, but yet everything in your life points you to Illinois. Good luck on that one.
Yeah.
And as things have been unraveling and people are moving more, and taxes, the infrastructure, and business offices, people aren't going into the office anymore. Cities are becoming a lot of I think we're a little behind in realizing how much our economy is changing, because people are not going into the office anymore. People are leaving the cities, but it's going to get worse as far as taxes, and making sure every state is getting everything that they can from their tax base. And I think that's going to be become even more. And right now is to do your strategy and do your plan is right now. You don't, if it doesn't matter until it does, then it's too late. And that also falls in with privacy. Privacy doesn't matter until it does, and when it does matter, it's too late. Mm-hmm. And we really have been focusing more on the strategy for finances, but they both do go hand in hand. And what I say to people on those is, there's 3 pillars of freedom that I really focus on: freedom of expression, freedom of association, and freedom of movement. We've been mostly talking about freedom of movement, a little bit of freedom of association, but yeah. So. So that long explanation to your question, but I hope that was helpful.
No, that was very helpful. And I mean, somebody like myself, so thinking about this, if I wanted to make that, make South Dakota my domicile, I have a daughter. So if South Dakota is where we live. It's our residency, primary residency. But if I'm still living here in Pennsylvania or somewhere else, and she is attending school, I would think a child attending school would be, one of those markers that would be hard to get around when the tax man comes calling.
As far as for you, that would be up to the professionals. But I don't know how that would connect to you. You can, you're an adult. She's an adult. Actually, okay, in my opinion, this is just my opinion. If they're like, well, one of the questions that could be asked that need to be justified is, let's say that you were truly out of Pennsylvania, but yet you were going back there to visit her. They're going to be like, well, when you return back, let's say you were an expat, you were living out of the country. When you come back to the country, where do you go to? That would be one of the questions for an expat. And they're going to say, well, every time I come home, I fly into whatever airport in Pennsylvania. And so I go there and I spend time with friends and family. But you can say, I think there could be a justification there if there's other questions that are correctly answered, unjustified, that my daughter goes to college there. That doesn't affect my residency there.
She's 6 years old. So yeah, she's elementary school. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought when you said school, I thought you meant, yeah, you're right. Okay. Yeah. That would be a little bit tough. Yeah.
No, but I mean, I think that is a good point. So if someone did have older kids, I think there is definitely that flexibility would be there.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah. If you are then visiting for friends and family, if you're going back there, that's part of like, where's your community? That would be one of the questions. And well, my daughter, she's at the university. I go visit her. That's why I go back to Pennsylvania. I mean, and I think it would also be depending on it. If you are still, if you have physical, shared physical custody of the child and how that works. If that was a situation for someone, those things would really require the consulting of an accountant and a lawyer to really figure out how that would work.
Yeah, I think the takeaway for me is this is, and you've said this too. It's very personal. This isn't like a boilerplate template, like you just do this, fill out this form. And it's very personally tailored to you, your decisions, your needs, and things like that. So that's one of my biggest takeaways. I want to get into talking about the specifics about PrivacyPost.io. How it works, if somebody wanted to use your services, what steps they would take, if you can kind of guide us down that path.
Sure. So with PrivacyPost.io, that's in part of our trademark name is the website, the URL. So that makes it easy. That's where you go to get information. And what I want to emphasize is we live, eat, and breathe privacy and security. Our foundation, everything we build, everything we do is on privacy and security. The website, it is a static website. It's very simple. It's basically, you just scroll down. It's one page, but you scroll through all the information. It's very transparent. And if you are a privacy nerd and you understand cookies and you understand links and you understand, how when you go to many websites, they're connecting you to Facebook, they're connecting you to Google Analytics, they're connecting you to all these things. And next thing you know, you've got all these eyes on what you're doing. We use none of those on the site. The site, the privacy policy is on the bottom. You can read it. It's like a paragraph. Because we're not doing anything with your information when you're on our website. We have no Google Analytics. We have no analytics running on it at this time. We may do some open source later, but that's not a priority. We have no cookies other than what's required to view, to technically required to view the information. So that's really important. I really get tired of seeing these companies that say that your privacy is our top priority. And then you go look, if you have the right technology and you're aware of the right tools and extensions to put on your browser, you see how many things there. You're connecting to Bing, you're connecting to Twitter, you're connecting to Facebook, you're connecting to Google Analytics, you're connecting to all these services that are potentially monitoring and monetizing your every click. So none of that is on our website, but the website's very clear on the services we provide and who they're for, are kind of our target audience. The other thing with the website that's a little different is our pricing looks more expensive than other services. If you just were to do virtual mail service, South Dakota or virtual mail, you'll get the top ones that are like, we have 2,000 addresses across the country, blah, blah, blah. And their prices are going to come up at $9.95 a month. Okay, so there's two ways prices are deceitful in most services, and I've even seen these in the local services. And you'll see this a lot with software and stuff like that. They'll say, it's only $9.95 a month. And you're like, oh, okay, that's pretty, I'm going to sign up. And you sign up and it's like, wait a minute, it's only $9.99 a month if you buy 1 year of service. If you want it to pay monthly, it's $12.95. and they don't get you. They don't get you until you're actually in the checkout. So the way our numbers are are very transparent and very clear. We list the yearly price and the monthly price. So our monthly price looks more expensive because we don't do that trick. But it's actually very transparent of what you'd really be paying. The other thing that we do that's different than these other services is they will give this crazy, stupid $9.95 a month. And but then you read all the details and it's like, oh, you can receive 10 letters a month for that $9.95. Then it's $1 or 50 cents for each letter. Oh, we'll scan 10 pages for the month, and then it's $1 or something, for each additional page. And most people that are using services that could, there are some outliers out there that really only have 1 or 2 pieces of mail a month, and that works perfect for them. That's great. But many people, they find that all of a sudden that $9.95, after the additional surcharges and so forth, and additional scanning and other features and in the extended storage of the mail, that ends up being $20, $30 a month. And that's really their goal, is to get it up to $20, $30 a month. And that's where we're at the beginning. So people who see that, and if they're just looking for, if they're just looking at this for the cheapest service, we would not be the cheapest service, but we're cheaper than our numbers look like from the beginning. If you really take a look at the services you're getting for the price that we're charging.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, because with our, I'm actually resigning from being the treasurer of our local Libertarian Party. But when I was the treasurer, I know how our mailbox is set up and all that stuff. And that's exactly what they do. It's very cheap to get in the door, but then you got to pay $2 to shred, and you got to pay extra storage fees. And they just jack it right up.
Yeah. Thank you for that's good. I didn't ask you that question. So that's good to know that you actually have, and we'll talk a little bit about your libertarian or whatever, your group or whatever, and using the service. So just on that a little bit about the privacy, what you're talking about, the shredding. Shredding is part of this. You have no choice. Okay. We shred everything. We will shred everything. When packages come in, before we recycle a box, we pull off identifying information on those packages, and then we shred that.
Okay.
So it's part of our core service, is the shredding. And it really, I think it's ridiculous when you see these pricing models that it's, 15 cents a page to shred. Who in the heck is going to sit there and count how many pages they shred, a business? That's just, and then how are you as a customer going to go, oh, wait a minute, I spent $8 last month in shredding. How do I know this? And going through and counting all the pages in your scanned mail and really determine it. I think it would be so easy for him to say, okay, I think it was 5 pages, 5 pages, and then shred it, blah, blah, blah. And,
that's
mark
probably
it
what
on
happens
the
a lot of time.
Yeah. Right. And and the other thing too, to remember about those is when you go look at those 995s, and there's 2 points with those that are like, 2,000 mailboxes around the world. First of all, look at their privacy policy. And if you're a geek that can really take the time to read that, look at their privacy policy, and you're going to be shocked what you read if you really take the time to read that. Secondly, those 2,000 mailboxes, that's not they don't own them. Those are mom and pop stores, mailbox stores and so forth. Most of them are independent. They could be like a UPS store or whatever. They sign up for these services. So they're a third party to the third party that's taking care of your mail. And so that mom and pop that's using that, they think, oh, this is great. Yeah, this service is going to be really cool. And I've talked to quite a few of them. They start doing it, and they realize they're promised all these customers. They're promised, all this, extra revenue in their little, their little pack and ship store. Right. And they realize it's not coming. And then maybe the 100 or whatever people that through this mail service that signed up for them have changed all their legal addresses, have changed all their return mailing addresses, all their billing addresses have been changed to this big 2,000 whatever, cloud service. But really it's a mom and pop, and the mom and pop says, we're done. We're not going to do this anymore. And they say, we cancel. We're not going to take the mail anymore. And then this big cloud service is canceling, your address. And you're like, wait, what? I got to go change everything. What's going on? And then you also have to look at, the supply chain of your information. It's like, who's scanning it? How many different layers of people that are not accountable for that company is touching, handling, looking, seeing your mail.
See, now that's a good point. I want to dig a little deeper there on the different differentiation between these types of services, the mom and pop places, the place that, my local Libertarian Party has a mailbox, and yours, because that's digging into the privacy element of it. So how does your service differentiate there?
Okay. There's a few different things, and I have to be thoughtful here and sync, because I don't want to disclose too much. But when you go to our website, it is not our entire building, but that is the building that 112 South Main is the legal address. If someone, let's say the Libertarian Party, were to use that address, that is the legal address. Google Street View shows a legitimate business building. They don't show a UPS store or, I don't want to use a commercial name and get in trouble here, but, Joe's Pack and Ship, something. And you try, if you want to have a persona of having a legitimate business, and someone Google Street Views and they're like, oh, wait a minute, that's a shipping store,
Yeah, exactly.
So that's one thing. But the other thing too is what we have negotiated with the owner of the building and stuff. We have a very specific area, an office that's very private. We do not have a public entrance. We don't have foot traffic. We don't have a reception. Nobody can just come, we don't have a business hours on the door. There's no signage. There's nothing to indicate our office. And we do not allow people, we treat the office, the mail center, we call it the back office, and the data storage. We treat that like a data center. As far as security, as far as who goes in, who goes out, maintenance can't just come in without notice and off hours or whatever and fix something unless it's emergency. We have specific protocols in the contract of who can access the office without us being present, and we need first attempt to be there. We have a protocol to make sure that in-town staff would be there if there's an emergency, short of a fire that started, combusted, and there was no time to make a phone call. Of course, they're going to go in and put out the fire. But so that's how we are different in those aspects. The other aspect is there's no third party. Everything we do is our staff, our team. And to drill down even further than that, everybody on the team, I don't care if they're scanning documents. We do our own cleaning, so we don't have cleaning staff coming in for reasons as well, for privacy. But any person that's doing anything that has access to the information or access to the office, they are expected to understand, learn, train, and have the intuitive, intrinsic traits of someone who cares about privacy, someone who doesn't take shortcuts to say, you know what, I'm tired of typing in this long password every time. I'm just going to change everything to summer 2021, stuff like that. So everybody is a cybersecurity, data privacy expert within. Now, are they all, as far as, are they, computer programmer levels of data privacy or cybersecurity experts? No, but everybody is expected to know and understand what our requirements are for data privacy and security. Kind of, I should have started with this. It's kind of like the military. It doesn't matter what your role in the military is, whether you're an admin or whether you're actually, commanding a tank. You are a soldier first when you're in the armed forces. Everybody learns the basics of being a soldier, and that's their primary role. Then they learn their ancillary specialty after they've learned those core, sets of skills of being a soldier. Mm-hmm. And when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if they're a cook, a line cook, or if they're swabbing the deck of a ship. If they're a soldier or whatever would be in the Navy first. Does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
They are they are experts in their craft. Like
yes.
you said, they're not computer programmers, but if you had a bunch of cybersecurity, privacy expert computer programmers, you'd be paying
yes.
them a ton of money to do things that
exactly
way over their pay grade. So.
Yeah, and so we have certain ways we vet them and clarify and have a certain expectations on how privacy and security is maintained. So we take it very seriously, all the way up and down the line.
So question, and I had to look this up beforehand because I wasn't familiar with it. Warrant canary. So one thing that you ever advertise is a warrant canary process. Can you explain what that is? And I don't know, you probably can't go in detail about, what your process is.
Yeah, actually, for most of the part, yes, I can.
Okay.
That's okay. But there's one part that I probably not to disclose. But this is kind of, we're kind of pushing the envelope on this warrant canary. Warrant canary can, it depends on certain individuals and businesses have the stomach for a warrant canary. It has gone through legal review, and everything we're doing so far looks good. And that's what our plan is at this time. But a warrant canary is basically, how can I explain this? A warrant canary is very known within the privacy peeps world, but for many people, maybe in the libertarian sector, they may be heard of, but they really don't know what it is. A warrant canary is a way to inform the customers of a business that a warrant has been placed upon an entity within that business, if that makes sense. So typically these days, especially since 9/11 and with the national security letters of needing specific information on specific people that are using an ISP or phone system, phone records, cell records, or so forth. Typically what happens when they go to the third party, and this is called the third party doctrine. If anybody wants to look that up, there's lots of caveats to that. It's not a cut and dried thing, but there's a lot of legal case law and legal review on what a third party doctrine is. But when a third party holds your personal data and a legal entity comes in and requests it, they'll request it usually with a warrant. And with that warrant, they'll have a gag order. And that gag order will say, okay, we want all the information on this customer. And this gag order this gag order is demanding that you do not inform the customer that we were getting all this information. So a customer has all their mail with us, let's say for 2-3 years or whatever, and a warrant comes in for that individual, all of their information. And it will come with this, it will come with the search warrant will come with the gag order. So then we cannot inform the customer that, oh, by the way, we had to give all your information, to this legal entity. We can't say a thing. So with a warrant canary, you don't tell your customers that their information has been given to a legal entity. You tell them in a certain sequence of time that their information has not been given to a legal entity. And if you misinforming them that their information has not been given to a legal entity, and if they're keeping up on that, they can assume that their information has been given to a legal entity. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, yes.
So the fact that you have not informed them that their information has not been given to a legal entity, and you just don't inform them for that sequence of time, whatever that is, and we have different levels, then they can assume that their information was, given to a 3-letter agency or the IRS is a 3-letter agency, or a tax, a state, tax department or whatever, that their information has been given. And that would be a plausible situation where a tax authority says, okay, we want all the information for this person because we don't believe that they really reside in the state, So then that would trip the warrant canary, and then in that next rotation of informing them, disclosing to them that there has not been an inquiry for their information, they would not get that disclosure that nope. And then if they're on it, they'd say, wait a minute, I wasn't informed that and then they say, what just happened? Then they can assume that their information was given to some agency.
Right. And move forward from there. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So that would be very to these organizations and that's where we're talking about freedom of association and freedom of expression.
Yeah.
We want to know all the people on the mailing list for this Libertarian Party. So let's do a warrant for all the mail for this libertarian party. We want to know all of them that are on the mailing list or who are receiving mail or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then that would be an easy thing for them to do. And then that would include a gag order. And then you, the leader of the Libertarian Party or whatever, the organizer, whatever
Mm-hmm.
you never are informed that you're none the wiser that all your information was shared with the 3-letter agency, TLA.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. So I've asked you a bunch of questions, and I feel like there's probably something I've missed that is important for you to talk about. So we're running out of time here, but I just want to give you the opportunity. If I missed anything and there's something important that you really wanted to bring forward and talk about, do that now.
Right. And I think there's just so many moving pieces to this. And I really want to focus so that it doesn't get overwhelming to explain to people. But I think the important thing I want to relay here and impress upon people on this in this discussion is, as everyone's part of doing this, this great resignation, this big quit, this voting with their feet, saying, you know what, I used to go to Florida for 3 months a year. Now I'm gonna go 7 months a year, and I'm getting out of this state. I'm done. People need to really be intentional in how they organize their business. It doesn't take $1,000. It takes hundreds of dollars. Organize their business if they're going to create an entity. And you need to do that for privacy. You create an entity. You don't register things in your home address. You don't register things in your personal name. You don't associate other family members or so forth and their addresses when you do these when you sign up for an LLC, when you register a business, a trademark or whatever, a domain. I mean, it's getting more. It used to be, people would go to GoDaddy and throw in their personal address, like, oh, it doesn't matter. I'm just starting. This is kind of a hobby right now. And then they get big and they get a podcast going, and they've got thousands of followers, and somebody can look at their domain registration. Oh, there's their home address. Bing. It's really important from the beginning to be considering and being respectful about privacy and building everything with privacy. And that is one of the big bonuses of South Dakota. You can do all of that with a layer of privacy. And if anybody wants to really understand what are some of the other benefits of it, and we didn't talk about this, is if you've heard of Pandora Papers. Have you heard of Pandora Papers, John?
I have not, no.
Okay, you can quick Google it, not now, but Pandora Papers, South Dakota is a very common place for people to put their trusts and stuff like that. And we're getting to a point in our society where if you shelter your money, if you shelter your privacy, you are the evil, rich, selfish 1% that don't want to pay your taxes.
If you protect your own wealth, protect your own family, you're an evil person.
Yes.
That's exactly what
it
is.
You are in the likes of all those billionaires who run off to the Virgin Islands with all that money that they're, that aren't going to pay their fair share. And it's really sad that that's the direction we're going. So it's really important for people to protect their assets, protect their identity, protect their family, protect, we're creating, podcasting and stuff. It's exploding. And, people, if they're not with the narrative, if they're not, if they're going against the narrative, if they have ideas that are picking up, traffic and picking up followers, they're going to get doxxed. And don't make it easy to be doxxed, because that does affect our freedom. That falls under, freedom of expression, freedom of association. And when you get doxxed, that will definitely impact your freedom. When your family and when you as not you personally, but a podcaster or a content creator is getting death threats, or, police called to your home pretending to be you, it's called swatting. That affects your freedom. And people really minimize that when they're starting their own business. They need to create those layers of privacy. And that's how we can help.
100%. And I mean, this is coming at, as you said, the perfect time. The temperature in the country, the Great Resignation, the shift in thinking, liberty-minded people are making right now. So really happy that you came on and you shared today with my audience. And I'll just say one more time, PrivacyPost.io. And you'll probably be hearing that name
Yes.
a lot more down the road here. So, what you were saying.
And John, really quick. Yeah, just really quick. We have several options for privacy communication. We do have a Proton Mail address. We didn't even get into that, and encryption. That's on the website. It's very well explained. And if people don't understand it and encryption, they can learn about it on the internet. Anybody can reach out to us, even if they're not interested in South Dakota for domicile or whatever. If they want to learn they want some advice on how they can make their business or their content creation or their endeavor more private, we'd love to help them out. An email, Signal, it's all on there. People feel free to reach out to us, and we really believe in privacy, and we just like to help people. It's not about always making a buck.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Dallas, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, John.
Hope you guys enjoyed another great interview, another great conversation here on Finding Freedom. Today's episode brought to you by the good people, Nate and Charlie at Good Morning Liberty, and their 5-day-per-week show where they dive into current events and give you a sane take, a nice filter on the news and political landscape to help you to navigate these turbulent times. Of course, you can subscribe to Good Morning Liberty wherever you get your podcasts. So do that today. And also brought to you by Tyler Colford, also known as Crypto Man. Tyler is a rapper, and of course, you've probably heard his songs here on this show. Tyler's been a longtime supporter of us here at Lions of Liberty, and I want to encourage you all to go and find his work on iHeartRadio, on Spotify under Crypto Man, YouTube as well. Check him out, listen to his music, share his music, and thank you, Tyler, for the support. Guys, if you like what you're hearing here at Lions of Liberty, if you like these shows and you don't want to miss them, I mean, I know, when I get into a podcast, there's a few podcasts that I don't miss an episode, but there's a lot more podcasts where I subscribe and I listen to most episodes. So with Lions of Liberty, like a lot of podcasts, but especially Lions of Liberty, because of the nature of our shows, our variety show format, and we're always bringing on different guests, different interesting characters, you want to subscribe because you don't want to miss a show. You might miss an episode with someone that you really wanted to hear, and because you're not checking the feed, it's not coming to your phone, you're going to miss it when it's dropped. You're going to miss out being in on that initial conversation, maybe happening in the Lions of Liberty forum, which you can find on Facebook, or maybe happening in our Lions Pride, our private Facebook group, or maybe over on Locals, which you can join, become a patron there, lionsofliberty.locals.com. Or if you're a patron fan, you can go to patreon.com/Lions of Liberty and join up there. We have a bunch of different levels you can join at, get access to the show. You can sponsor shows. You can even produce shows at a certain level. Of course, all the merchandise, all that stuff, you get that at certain levels too. Or if you just want to buy our t-shirts, we got some great designs. Check them out, lionsofliberty.store. Guys, it's been a great show. Hope you enjoyed it. And I will see you all next week. In the meantime, remember to keep your head up and the fires of liberty burning.